Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're diving into some exciting stuff. We're going to unpack TVS Motor Company's performance this past quarter, Q2 of 2024. A lot of you wanted us to really get into it, not just the basic numbers from their reports, but what's actually going on behind the scenes.
And there's a lot to unpack. Record revenue, impressive EV sales, and some interesting moves on the sustainability front, too.
Exactly. So to connect all these dots for us, we've got our expert here that'll help us make sense of these reports, see how it all lines up with what's happening in the market, and what it all means if you're interested in TVS Motor Company.
It's always a good sign when a company isn't just along for the ride, but really pushing the industry forward. And that seems to be the case with TVS this quarter.
For sure. So let's jump right in. TVS just announced their highest revenue and profits ever for a second quarter. We're talking over 9,228 crores in revenue, and their profits before tax shot up by a massive 24% compared to Q2 last year.
Yeah, a 24% jump in profit before tax, that's not something to gloss over, especially with how unpredictable things have been in the market lately. This tells me TVS is making some smart moves, maybe streamlining things, managing costs really well, and reeling in more customers. It's a strong signal about their overall financial health.
So they're not just selling more, they're managing their money really well too. That's a great combo. And when we look at their operating revenue, which is basically the money they made from, their main business activities, that's up a solid 13% from last year. But here's what really caught my eye. Their operating EBITDA, that's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, basically a way to gauge their core profitability. That number skyrocketed by 20%, hitting a massive 1,080 crores.
That's a huge takeaway here. This EBITDA increase tells us TVS isn't just growing, they're becoming way more efficient and profitable. This usually points to some really good decision-making. Maybe they've optimized their processes or even negotiated better deals with suppliers. Whatever it is, it's definitely working.
It's like they've figured out how to make every rupee work harder while selling more vehicles than ever. Which brings us to those impressive sales figures. They moved a total of 12.28 lakh units. That includes their two-wheelers and three-wheelers, even exports. That's a 14% increase compared to the same time last year.
And we got to break down those sales numbers to get the full picture. So 14% growth in motorcycles, that's awesome, don't get me wrong. But the really interesting part, that 17% surge in scooter sales. TVS is tapping into this growing demand for reliable, good-looking scooters, especially in the Indian market where those types of vehicles are hugely popular.
It's like they're not just keeping up with trends, they're anticipating what people want and delivering it. That's key in a competitive market. And we can't forget about their exports. 16% growth there shows they're not just playing in India, they're making waves globally too.
And that global reach is going to be crucial, especially with the way the automotive world is shifting, with the rise of EVs. And that leads us to another exciting part of TVS's performance.
You mentioned electric vehicles, and yeah, TVS's numbers there are seriously impressive. Like their EV sales just exploded this quarter, up a huge 31%, hitting 0.75 lakh units. That's not just keeping up with the EV game, that's like sprinting while everyone else is just learning to walk.
Totally. This is where you can really see TVS thinking ahead. They're not just dipping a toe in the EV pool, they're diving right in. And the results, they speak for themselves. This kind of growth, it tells me they're not just meeting the current demand, they're anticipating what's coming next, positioning themselves as a front runner in this whole electric vehicle revolution. I mean, think about it, the EV market in India, it's growing like crazy, right? But TVS is 31% growth. That's blown even the most optimistic projections out of the water.
Yeah.
They're not just riding the wave, they're the ones making the wave, if that makes sense.
I love that analogy. It makes you wonder, what are they doing that's so different? How are they grabbing such a huge piece of this booming market?
Well, for one thing, they're not just slapping batteries into their old models and calling it a day. They're really investing in developing new EV technology, new designs, and the whole package. Take the TVS iQube electric scooter, for example. Have you seen this thing? It's sleek, modern, it's got impressive range, and it's packed with smart features that are perfect for, city driving, that focus on making EVs that people actually want to be seen in, combined with their, huge dealer network and their rep for reliability. That's a killer combo in a market that's getting more crowded by the day.
It's like they understand that going electric isn't just about ditching gas. It's about creating a whole new experience, something that appeals to a whole new generation of riders.
100%. And they're not stopping there.
Yeah.
TVS is making some big moves in sustainability too, which, let's be real, it matters more and more to consumers and investors these days.
Totally. You mentioned their Hoosier site getting those certifications, water positive and zero waste to landfill, right?
Yeah.
What does that actually mean on the ground, and why should we care?
Those certifications are huge, seriously. It means TVS's Ozzer facility is putting back more water than it takes and sending absolutely zero waste to landfills. This shows they're serious about shrinking their environmental footprint and going all in on sustainable practices. In a world wrestling with climate change and resources getting stretched thin, those efforts are huge. It's not just about checking a box. It's about making sure there's a future where we're using resources responsibly and, actually caring about the planet. Consumers are getting more and more aware of the impact their choices have, and companies that get that, the ones that align with those values, they're the ones that are going to earn trust and loyalty.
It's like they're saying, we're not just trying to sell you something, we're trying to be part of the solution, a better future. And when you look at their overall financial performance, I mean, they had a 23% jump in PAT, that's profit after tax, by the way, hitting a cool 12,240 crores for the first half of this fiscal year. It's working not just with consumers, but investors too, clearly.
That bigger picture view is crucial because it tells us TVS's success isn't a fluke. It's not just one thing. Their overall financial strength, their smart investments in innovation, sustainability, and really understanding how the market is changing. It all adds up to a company that's not just adapting to change, they're shaping the future, you know.
It's like they're playing chess and everyone else is playing checkers. They're thinking way ahead. It's seriously impressive seeing a company like TBS not just keeping up, but actually leading the charge in an industry that's changing so fast.
Yeah, it's really something.
But all this momentum kind of makes you wonder, what's next?
For sure. If you're interested in TVS, and it sounds like you are, it's not just about celebrating today, it's about asking the right questions about tomorrow. Like we talked about their EV game being strong, but how are they going to handle a global market that's getting super competitive, even in the EV space?
It's one thing to be a big fish in, like the Indian market, but going up against those global players is a whole different ballgame. Based on what we're seeing, do you think TVS is ready for that?
Well, they're definitely putting in the work, especially when it comes to innovation, like battery tech and all those smart features. That gives them a real shot. And don't forget, they've got that reputation, for making vehicles that are reliable, that don't break the bank, that's huge in markets where price matters, and trust me, it does.
Yeah.
But they're going to have to adapt. Different countries, different customers, different rules. You got to be ready for all of it.
Totally. You can't just ship out the same models and hope for the best. You got to know what those customers want in different parts of the world. Like they've nailed it with the scooters in India, finding that balance between what works globally and what works locally.
Absolutely. And that brings up another question. Can TVS use this success, all this momentum, to not just enter new markets, but actually shake things up? They've shown they can do it in India with those innovative EVs and, walk in the walk on sustainability, but can they pull it off globally?
Now, that's the million-dollar question. And one we should definitely be paying attention to as TVS keeps moving. It's been awesome, really digging into TVS Motor Company this quarter. We've seen some incredible numbers for sure, but I think more than that, we get it, what's behind those numbers.
Totally. It's not just about the numbers themselves. It's the story they're telling.
Yeah.
Right? A story about innovation, about thinking strategically, and about building a future that's actually, sustainable.
Exactly. And as we've seen today, sometimes those stories are way more interesting than just looking at a spreadsheet. So if you're into TVS, and it seems like a lot of you are, don't stop here. Check out their full reports. Keep asking those good questions. Stay curious.
Because the more you understand what's shaping the future, the better prepared you'll be to be a part of it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time for another exciting look into the world of business and innovation.